Okay, welcome back to 13 Questions. This week we've got the mighty Duncan Trussell, who everyone knows. We've been looking forward to getting him on the show. Um, so I think we won't chit chat too much. We'll jump right into it. If I could just find the questions here, you'd think I would have them memorized by now, but I don't. Um, Thanks for coming on the show, Duncan.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll jump right into question one. And that is, what was the best advice ever given to you, and would you modify it at all today?
Well, the best advice I ever got was to have a steady meditation practice, and I would not modify it at all. Not much to modify in that one.
Who gave it to you?
Well, it came from many different people. Lots of people that I respect.
Yeah.
Many teachers who sort of could pretty easily tell that I didn't have any kind of regular practice. And I was trying to like figure out ways to get out of it. Nobody much wants to, discipline's tough. You have muscles, that, but like that, achieving that requires consistency over time. And that consistency over time teaches you something, regardless of whether you get muscles or learn to play piano or something like that. And certainly like sitting and meditating shows you something about yourself. It's a good mirror, really. And also it gives you a kind of weird authority, at least when you have some thing like muscles, which is so funny. People trust disciplined people more, it seems like. They just have a natural trust of people who have in any kind of way mastered themselves, it seems like, which is fascinating. It's actually kind of dangerous, because it's like, just because you could do something consistently over time doesn't mean you're like safe or cool.
Doesn't mean your intention is true. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But it's a very powerful thing. It's so ridiculous because it seems like it wouldn't be that hard, especially when it comes to just sitting still for 30 minutes a day.
Well, has that, I mean, this is going to come up in another question, but has that daily meditation practice shifted and changed over the years? Because it is difficult. I mean, I can't really get to it daily, but it's like more of like a 4 or 5 times a week thing. But
That's great.
I keep flipping around back and forth to different things. Like I don't have that ritual that you're talking about where you do the same thing every day.
Yeah, it comes and goes. I mean, that's another way that it teaches you. It's like, you'll think, oh, fuck, I've got this now. I've got it. I'm doing it. I'm really doing it every day. This is amazing. I'm looking forward to it. And then suddenly you're just not doing it anymore. And you're watching that strange force field appear that between you and that action. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, totally.
And then you're like, well, what is that force field? Why can't I do it? Well, because I'm too busy, or whatever excuse you make up.
Yeah.
But it's all bullshit. And so then you just kind of see, oh, cool, self-deception. I'm just tricking myself. Why? How do I not know what I'm doing? That's ridiculous. Who's running the ship here? Who's driving the bus if it's not me? So teaches you stuff about yourself.
And that awareness doesn't come easy, though. I mean, that awareness comes from the daily practice that you've been doing, right? I mean, if you can't sit back and watch your mind, then you don't have, I think it's difficult to have that awareness that you're deceiving yourself.
Yeah. And it's so real. And like over here like in the West, we think it's so crazy and like wild and like a big deal, but it's really not a big deal. It's like taking a shower.
Yeah.
Is that your current practice then? Half hour a day?
Yeah, a half hour.
Interesting. Number 2, what was the most important lesson you learned from your parents, directly or indirectly?
Impermanence. When your parents die, you get a pretty good lesson in impermanence. And I don't mean like they didn't teach me other things, but that was a really great thing they taught me. It's impermanence. Pretty good lesson in like how to die too. Like going out with a kind of grace. They both died in a very graceful, very sweet way, very impressive way, fearless, and letting go. I don't know how many people have bad deaths, actually. Maybe it's just a thing that kicks in when you're dying, but yeah, impermanence. They taught me impermanence firsthand.
What book has been most influential on your life and why?
Um, it's like that question's weird because I think uh, it sort of forces you into this like, oh, there's a book that runs through my whole life. I don't think there's just any single book. It seems like various ones pop up in different phases. You know, I don't have that consistent as self to be like, oh shit, man, it's this book. I mean, there's easy answers to that, but I do find Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism is a fantastic one. And I find myself going back to that a lot these days.
Excellent. We're going to get quite the library out of these book questions
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
Number 4, what daily habits or rituals do you have, and do you recommend them for others?
I don't. I wouldn't recommend meditating to people because I think it's a thing that just happens and no need to impose it on yourself. But right now, that's one that I've got that I like a lot.
If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most?
I don't think they would. I don't think they would like that. That idea. I was thinking about that question. I thought, and then I was like summoning up that model of best friend or friend, which is the corrective friend. You know, like, boy, you need to improve this or that, man. And like, that whole corrective bullshit is like, I get it. You know, the idea of like, let me help you, man. I'm going to show you how to be. But I think a really great friend and like, also the term best friend is a wild friend idea concept too, you know, like a hierarchy of friends. Like you keep a little cabinet with your fucking pictures of your friends in order, depending on who's like acting the way you want them to that week. Going, all right, I'm gonna put David at the top this week. But that idea of the corrective friend, I hope is going the way of the fucking dinosaur. You know, a really good friend, man, a really good friend is just there with you, you know, the way you are. It's a pretty great feeling to be around people. And I've fucked up. I've been the corrective friend so much, it's horrific when I look back at the many times I've tried to like teach my friends. But I think that's a waste of time.
So not even, people keeping you on track or keeping you accountable to what you say you're going to do, or?
Yeah, I think that whole thing is like a kind of it's like, how do I, that whole thing is based on this like modern concept of just essentially like finding different ways to not like yourself. And all that's built into the idea that if you change this thing or that thing, you're going to be valid or worth something. And I think that kind of internal dialogue people have with themselves every single fucking day is just, it's really exhausting. Not to say that like the habits that are detrimental to you or your community or all the little things within you, particularly like, whatever it is that but I don't think, I think that's only like a little piece of who people are. And mostly people are so good at looking at themselves and thinking about what they need to change and not even witnessing how beautiful and incredible and like all the amazing stuff they have overcome in their lives to be where they're at. I think it's better to focus on that.
Cool.
That's a good answer.
Thanks.
What are you most curious about?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm like extremely interested in the learning curve. Or the process of learning or the process of acquiring skills and the arm wrestling match you go into when you start learning stuff, and the meta data that seems to be encoded into the learning curve, and how the learning curve is a wall, basically, or a kind of like membrane that separates huge swaths of the population from other swaths of the population, and that you can't buy your way through the learning curve, which is pretty cool. You can get a teacher and it'll shorten the time, I think. Maybe there's like nootropics or something, or like some kind of like medication you could get that might help your cognitive processes. But you just can't, you got to like climb the fucking thing yourself. So I kind of love that because it's this it's a force field, and or another way to put it might be, it's a mountain and there's no Sherpa There's no learning curve, Sherpa. You can get coaches. You can get people who are going to stand next to you, encourage you, but you still got to do it yourself. So right now I'm very curious about the learning curve and the experience of hitting the learning curve and all the things it teaches you.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, mushrooms help with that, I find.
With the learning curve?
Yeah.
You mean with like teaching yourself stuff?
Maybe with hammering things home sometimes. Simple concepts that I just haven't seemed to grasp, and then I'll be like,
oh, that's
wait
what
a
that
second.
is. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, like maybe they show you a different angle on things that you weren't seeing.
What was one of the most embarrassing experience of your life?
Yeah. Embarrassing. Well, you know, I'm a comedian, so like, am I allowed to like just put every single time I've just desperately eaten shit on stage into like one basket of embarrassment?
Yeah.
Because I can't think of much more something more embarrassing than
What does that feel like?
Well, it's like a combination of many, many things. So the best way to put it is you feel like ashamed, rejected, a failure. All of your sort of imposter syndrome stuff is fully confirmed. And kind of worse than that, you feel like you're a narcissist, or how dare you be so puffed up that you would come standing on stage and try to make people laugh. Who the fuck do you think you are? And if you've ever had any kind of injection of the voice of a suppressive person in your life, and many of us have, I mean, if you haven't, wow, you're lucky. But because so many people don't understand the learning curve, when they encounter a person who isn't good at something and is trying to get better at it, oh man, they are merciless because they think that it like indicates a lack of talent, this myth of talent, And so anyway, all those voices will come bubbling up in your head as you're driving home, and it hurts. It's just a really bad feeling. And it's an especially bad feeling if the reason it happened is because you weren't working hard enough, because you haven't been like writing or going on stage enough. Oh God. It's just, French kissing justice.
Lady Justice.
Lady Justice is a harsh mistress.
Yeah. Emperor Justice in this case. It's like French kissing, like just a gristled, powerful, completely correct, autocratic man.
What is your greatest fear and how do you overcome it?
I used to be really terrified of death. And I think death is the mother of fears. And for a lot of people, sort of like if you can like deal with that one, then all the other fears kind of go away. So in the past, I had a very deep neurotic fear of my own extinction, specifically because I had cancer. I was living every single day in a real fear realm where I was always afraid it was going to come back. And the way I dealt with that was by taking like going to the doctor, and not being afraid of getting the scans, and not falling prey to like all the cowardly ways you tell yourself to not do something that you're afraid to do, like the bullshit weird, idea that it's the doctors that make you sick, that kind of stuff, which is what I was telling myself to get out of, just facing the reality of like, dude, you've got to get enough. You have to go in once you've had cancer and get scanned every once in a while. And out of fear, I stopped doing that. And but then I started doing it again, realizing like, what the fuck am I doing here? So that's one way, direct action. The fear is the X marks the spot on the treasure map most of the time, unless you're like running from a tiger, in which case don't go to, that's not an X, that's a tiger. But usually like if you're afraid of something, it's like that's the class for a lot of people, fear is getting a letter in the mail from a very elite university that's inviting you to take a class that they've decided you're ready for, and to not open the envelope or to turn your eyes from it or to do whatever the many tricks people do to try to not confront fear is to actually keep yourself out of a pretty amazing university.
Yeah, we did a great episode on that with a listener actually about Bono, which I think it was the Buddhist, like one of the, he was learning a different style of Buddhism that was all about Bono, which is fear, like facing your fear and getting through that, like physically going out and doing things that you're
Dancing
scared
naked
to
in the
do
streets.
and, you know, whatever to get through that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you do have to, it is like, it's such a like funny thing. People know the word fear, but then they don't even know it. I mean, no one spends much time really even thinking, what does it feel like to be afraid even? What is that? And then you think you're afraid and you realize I wasn't really afraid. I was anxious.
Mm-hmm.
It was more anxiety than fear or you know, it's like laziness. It wasn't even really fear. I mean, when are you really afraid? Usually it's some kind of uneasiness or something, or usually it's a whole like grouping of a few different emotions all wrapped up into something. And you're like, I'm afraid. You're not really afraid. Usually you're nervous,
Yeah.
you know, getting a nice burst of like chased by a fucking knife wielding clown or something. That doesn't happen very much. I mean, it depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Yeah, in the southeast, I think it's prominent.
Yeah, a lot of clown problems in the southeast these days. It's really fucked up.
What quality do you admire most in a man and why?
In a man,
Yeah,
you mean like what do I like about masculinity?
yeah.
Uh, well, I think that there's a real amazing quality in the sort of I guess you would call it like a kind of calm, a powerful type of calmness and simultaneous vulnerability and how would you say it? It's a place where vulnerability meets action. So, you know, if you're around someone who's like not afraid, you know, these qualities are not masculine or necessarily limited to men, of course. And there's masculine traits in women in the same way there's feminine traits in men, which Jung talked about, the anima and the animus, wrapped up in every single person or the genders, you know.
I've even
But
heard it as in everything.
and everything, yeah. But you know, I think there is a wonderful kind of like powerful vulnerability that I've noticed in very masculine, like actual men, that and a kind of real amazing patience that manifests that I think is pretty amazing.
Who were or are your role models and why?
Well, one great role model of mine right now is my meditation teacher, David Nichtern. And the reason behind that is because he is, you know, a really great teacher in a lineage of Buddhism that I really like a lot and I'm attracted to and drawn to. And you wouldn't know it about him necessarily. It's not an overt thing. He doesn't wear weird clothes or he doesn't like, you know what I mean, put on a show of being holy or anything like that. You would never guess it. You'd have no idea that he studied under Chogyam Trungpa for, I don't know, well over a decade, that he's a great musician. I think he's won Grammys. You wouldn't know any of it. He's just just like he's just he's like us, you know, except he isn't at all because he's been, you know, he is an actual teacher. And so that's a wonderful thing to be around because on one level it's just your friend, but then on another level it's well, I guess you could say it is a little bit like being around a lion. Only in this case the lion is sort of devouring the places you're stuck, not actually hurting you necessarily. So that's he's a great role model to me. I love it. He's like so innocuous, and it's an amazing thing for someone to have like a real lifetime focused practice. It's just not a big deal, you know. That's what I like. It's not a big deal to him. And I think that's super cool and a good sign in a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
A good sign in anybody, even. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What institution of society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given the chance?
this is a tricky question, but for me, if you by answering this question, because there's so many difficulties in the world right now, you kind of instantly sound like an asshole, right? Because it's like, what are you going to do? Prison reform first? Is that where you start?
Education,
well, education,
banking.
yeah. Where do you?
Militic was like, and the Fed.
Yeah, like yeah, right. Like, is it going to be that? Okay, we'll end the Fed, but then what about the massive homelessness in the streets of the United States?
Yeah.
What about, will ending the Fed stop that? Like, what is the question, I think, is good, but I think the core issue is, how do we improve society? And I think the most pragmatic way to do that is to start with your family. And to start with your relationship with the people who are directly around you. So, as Jack Kornfield says, tend to the part of the garden that you can touch. And I think a sort of exploration of an individual's identity and the problem of suffering and the false solution presented to us, that if you go here or there or eat this or that or take this or that or buy this or that, your suffering will in some way or another be assuaged, or that there's some point after, shifting phenomena around in specific forms where your suffering will diminish. I think that if we could stop that delusion, then we would solve all the other shit would naturally get fixed. Because the way that people exploit other people is by tricking them into thinking that if they go here or there or change this or that or move this or that around or buy this or that or take this class or do this thing, their suffering will end. And there's all kinds of flavors to that lie. But at the moment you analyze yourself and begin to understand what suffering is and why you suffer, then the tricks don't work anymore like that.
Yeah, good answer.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done in your life and seen?
I think the most courageous thing I did, and it doesn't really sound that courageous, because his courage is going to be specific to the individual. But yeah, for me, it was like getting my fucking goddamn cancer scans done. I've been putting it off for so long, I'd become neurotic about it. And I got a great doctor who was just like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's basically what he said. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, you got to get these. You have to do this. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think the x-rays cause cancer. He's like, no, they don't. You're wrong. I'm a doctor. He didn't say it like that, but it's beautiful. And I got out of the way, all the blood tests, all the scans. So yeah, that took took personal courage to do that. It did, but not that much. just a couple of steps and it was done.
What about seeing?
What about what?
What about one of the more courageous things you've seen?
Oh, the more courageous things I've seen. Well, I'll tell you, man. I always think that my there's when like courage, what pops into my mind is I think about the Dalai Lama a lot, because it's a person who is, a refugee, and he has no bitterness in him, and he's really fully sort of given himself over to like being this like mascot, so to speak, for love, an emanation of love. He just gave up himself, He doesn't really have the Dalai Lama, as far as I'm aware, I don't think he has a private life, Like he doesn't have some like nice house that he retreats to where he's by himself, where he like just sits and watches Fox News. I don't know, maybe, but that kind of like fully throwing yourself into servitude. I think that takes courage beyond courage. That's a pretty amazing thing.
I would agree. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that it is important?
Yeah, this question, some of these questions are interesting in that they imply a continuity of self, like that there's some permanent self. It's interesting. Like over time, some rule I thought about, I'm like, what the fuck rule do I have for myself? Like a rule, like a bit of a line of code or something, It's going to have to be something like real boring, if we're looking for a complete consistency of a rule.
Well,
It's something.
I think the questions come from a point of we'd be more interested in where you're at now, so that the people who aren't where you are, or so that the audience can sort of to take where they're at and sort of decide if those apply
I see
to
what
themselves.
you're saying.
So like, don't rape people would not be a real good answer, because that's probably what most people share.
Don't rape?
Just
rape.
Oh my God.
Don't what?
He said rape,
Don't
but I thought he
rape.
said rate. Yeah, but he said rape. So yeah, I mean that's
Holy Jesus fucking Christ. Let's hope that this isn't a rule. Like this isn't a thing you have to remind yourself of.
exactly.
It's to be kind to, the rule is be kind to yourself. Just, it's like, it seems so insane, but like, I don't know how long I spent just really hating myself and really like just brutalizing myself because I'd ingested the fear dynamics of my family into my psyche. And so I had this echo bouncing around in me, which was just the, residual kind of momentum from a sort of chaotic upbringing. And so, yeah, I think many of us have that right now. People are just, they are so fucking cruel to themselves. It's wild. They just naturally, without much thought, will say shitty things to themselves, just offhand shitty things, or they'll insult themselves to other people, or they're always apologizing, always sorry, or their like shoulders are just hunched over and they walk around with this like incredible sadness and shame. And they believe it when people tell them they're bad. And they believe it when people say that they've done something wrong when they haven't. And so it creates a really life condition that is not conducive to being compassionate to other people. Because if you can't be compassionate to yourself, how are you going to be compassionate to people around you? So I think that being kind to yourself and learning how to love yourself and forgive yourself is for me, that's a rule that I guess if you want to call it a rule, that I try to stick to.
Yeah, that's a great one. Because I mean, if you're not doing that, you're talking negatively yourself all the time. I mean, negative self-talk and all this. I mean, it just affects your gratitude in so many ways as well. I mean, and your whole well-being. I mean, it does have a really big effect. So yeah, that's a good one.
It does. And when someone's being a jerk to you or weird to you or whatever, it's almost 90% certain that they are flogging themselves every day in the most horrific way. And that's so sad, because it's just really what's happening is because most of us are just seeing projections of ourselves around us. If you don't love yourself, then you're going to be surrounded by assholes. And you're going to think, holy fucking shit, man, this world sucks, man. People are fuck, it's fucked up here, man. But really what you're seeing is the parts of yourself you can't love. So this is the kind of the glorious thing. If you want to experience with, if you experiment with multiverse travel and you want to experiment with like the many varieties of universes that you can access at any given moment, just start loving yourself. Figure it out. Cultivate compassion for yourself, and suddenly you'll find yourself in a world where there aren't quite as many assholes as there used to be. It's almost a mysterious thing. They all seem to vanish.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's like asshole repellent.
It's actually, yeah, it's not asshole repellent. It would be more of something that actually transforms assholes. I mean, some people like assholes, but you know what I'm saying. It's like
asshole alchemy.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yeah. Usually you're the asshole is the problem, and you're not an asshole. Well, I mean, you got to love your asshole. If you don't love your asshole, you're crazy, man. Just think of what it does. It helps you get rid of so much shit every day. It doesn't complain. It just does it, man. So similarly, you got to love yourself, all of it. You know, as they say, no mud, no lotus.
What qualities should a man strive for in today's world?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think that, this really hilarious thing just happened with the Gillette bullshit. You guys remember, did you catch that drama around the razors?
We tried to ignore it, but yeah.
And so all of a sudden the internet got populated with these like dudes like throwing their fucking razors in the garbage disposal and filming themselves doing that. And they were being very shrill about it, And I thought, whoa, that has got to be the least masculine thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, if you're YouTubing yourself as an adult, male or female, putting your razor in the fucking garbage disposal, and then like clearly angered by this, and then uploading it, I'm assuming you've got kids and that's just going to sit on the internet forever. I think what you're seeing there is not masculinity at all. You're seeing aggression. And I think that for a man, if you've gotten caught up with like the problem of having a dad with PTSD, which many of us have, or many of us, because at least in the United States, we've been at war over 70% of our history, and so we've got generations of people who have raised children while suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So a lot of dads, they like get really angry. They can't control their aggression, and so they yell and they scream and they get mad. And as someone who, like in the past, has been angry and has watched myself screaming in traffic, getting in fights in relationships and yelling and looking at my aggression, And so that's a really like powerfully dangerous trait, to not be able to, I'm not saying suppress your aggression, because that's going to cause problems. I'm saying getting to the root of why that's happening. And understanding, like, man, a lot of us got raised by fucking people suffering from a really severe disorder. A lot of us. And if we weren't raised by that person, a lot of us have it. So many people have been going to war. So many people have experienced this sort of craziness. And, untreatable, usually. You can only treat the symptoms. So the suicide rate, of veterans, it's really fucking high, man. And they're not getting treated. They just give them benzos and say, if you're freaking out, just stay home.
Yeah.
And these people have kids. So that's who your first contact with masculinity for a lot of people is someone suffering from a pretty severe psychiatric disorder who's not being treated, because the treatments are just being explored right now, the MDMA treatments. That
or there is no dad, or there is no dad.
What's that?
Or there is no dad, So
or there is no dad.
So that's another, add that to the mix.
Or maybe you have a stepfather or something who's afraid to be your dad or something. He's afraid to like give like any kind of structure. But really, whether you're a dad or not a dad, learning how to put a little pause between the moment of wanting to freak the fuck out and freaking out is a really valuable trait. And particularly, when I think of like what a masculine role model in a traditional, like in a family would look like, one thing would be someone who's got a nice even keel, not because he's faking it, but because he actually has an even keel, because he's done the work and he's learned about himself enough to find the kind of true confidence that one might need to have an even keel.
Yeah, that's great.
Great answers. That wraps up the free version of the show. We're going to take a quick break and jump into the little bonus section. Of course, if you guys are interested in how you can sign up for the extensions of the podcast and get access to the member only Discord. We've got some forums. You get access to a bunch of communications courses, 5 different communications courses, and some other great
And
stuff
porn.
too, and tons of porn. Head over to 13questionspodcast.com and sign up today, or mantranscending.com and sign up today. And become a member. So here we are in the bonus section, Duncan.
Hi.
We got a few more questions here we can do. We like to do, sometimes we do a little synopsis at the end, and we'll just see how it goes. We'll start out with the 5 bonus questions, though.
Bonus questions.
Yeah. Number 1, what would you tell your teenage self?
This is so funny. This is literally, this is the second, I did another interview earlier. This fucking question came up earlier. And I started seriously answering it. And then I realized, like, I wouldn't tell him anything. I love where I'm at right now. You know, I've got a son, a brand new baby. I have an amazing wife. All of it, all the bullshit, all the moments of being a complete asshole that I went through, all the getting caught in myself, and all of it, every single piece of it was worth it. It was all worth it. So I wouldn't want to say anything. I'd be terrified that I'd fuck it up, you know, that he would like encounter me or whatever. And then, like, who knows? In that moment, you just disappear. You know, you would destroy yourself, I imagine. I really like myself. I hate to say it. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't want to change myself. I'd feel bad to let the guy go through what he's going to go through, but like, fuck it.
No, that's
Let's
awesome
do
though,
it.
because if you did tell him to try and create some shortcut to get where you're at 10 years earlier, then the chances of ruining it are just astronomical. I mean, you know,
Yeah, man. I mean, this is the whole thing. Like, everybody wants to be someone else. It's like, it's a really intense problem we're having in our society. And everyone wants to be someone else. Everyone feels like, you know, I got to change. Or if I don't have to change, I have to change something around me.
Yeah.
Everyone's at war. They're either at war with the world, they're at war with themselves, you know, and it's just a sad situation because, you know, and within that at war quality, the whole, you know, truth of maybe what it would be like to be a true warrior gets lost, you know, and which is just, I think, pretty basic and simple and not complex at all. And it starts with not with flogging yourself, but with accepting the reality of your condition, where you are, as you are, you know, the terrain within which you currently are standing, the psychological, physical, and obviously like geotemporal terrain. And being completely open to what is right now instead of what you wish things were like, including the field of phenomena that is your body.
Yeah, that's good.
Great answer again.
Great.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, and emotionally?
Well, you know, I guess the big turn on for me right now is the present moment, and like realizing that, realizing that the present moment turns me on. It's great. In all those levels, you know. Another way to put it would be like understanding what is in the present moment, and then discovering within that what is real and what isn't, you know. Because anything that isn't in the moment just basically isn't real. Your past is just gone. And obviously your future, any idea you have of what the future is just some kind of simulation you're doing. And so the present is what's going down here. And then when you sort of begin to understand that there's a lot of overlays on top of the present moment that you've placed there, the story of your past, the idea of what's going to happen. And you don't like push them away so much as begin to analyze them, and you realize that they're fundamentally empty. And then you end up in this wonderful place, which is the present moment, a very spontaneous place, a very alive place, man. Very wonderful here. Wonderful here. And it's great because it's completely free. You know, no one can charge you for it. There's no way to charge tickets for the present moment. It can't be controlled. It's completely outside the tentacles of anyone who wants to control it. Anyone who is alive and breathing has direct access to it. And so that turns me on. And I love it because it's so infinitely opulent and infinitely abundant.
What is your single greatest driving force, and what do you do to try and further it?
I don't think I have a driving force. I mean, I don't really think I have a driving force at all. Just, I mean, you know what I mean? Like in the sense, like, okay, a boat has a sail and there's wind. And I guess the boat, if you could talk to it, be like, the wind. Maybe a car would say, it's the combustion engine, unless it's like an electric car or whatever. A carriage maybe would say the horse. But a human, what the fuck is, the question is, where are you in your body? Find that, what are you actually controlling? Like, what are you really, what's making the decisions here? Or as Ram Dass says, who's minding the store? Who's in there? Where are you in there? I mean, we've got our microorganism colonies in our guts, and we've got our thought patterns, which we don't make. We don't make our thoughts. We certainly don't make our inspiration happen. There's no way to make inspiration happen. It just comes to you. These epiphanous moments happen on their own. You don't do anything about that necessarily. And what about your breath? You don't really control your breath. You can hold your breath, but you're going to start breathing again unless you just die, which I don't even know if you can do that. And obviously your heartbeat, the cellular process, you're not doing anything there. That's not you at all. And so somewhere in there, you begin to realize, like, oh shit, like, wait, who's doing this? Who's running? Who's here? Is there anyone here? And do I have an imaginary friend living in my body that I call myself? So I think I don't really feel like I have a driving force.
Still a great answer.
Thanks.
What do you most often choose to ignore?
The driving force.
Yeah, the driving force. Well, right now I'm getting trained up in meditation, and a big part of the style of Buddhism that I'm learning is not ignoring. That's ignorance, ignorance, active ignoring, So what that means is that you start learning a little, like, you're invited to do something, which is in any given moment, there's like some like thing that's happening. Right. So like in this moment, for example, there's a little line noise that you guys have, but my brain took care of ignoring that. I didn't really have to like actively do it. But let's say, like, for example, a thought emerged in my mind that in the past I might want to ignore. You're going to die, for example. Or maybe like a feeling might emerge of anxiety, like pure anxiety, a kind of fear dynamic might emerge or something. So instead of ignoring it, which is really like exhausting, it's exhausting to ignore. That's why everyone's so fucking tired all the time. People are tired these days, a lot of people, and they think they need vitamins. And they think they maybe need to drink a little bit more water. But really, it's because they're so tired because they've been sticking their fingers in their ears or in their metaphysical ears,
Yeah.
Trying to not hear the truth. Trying to not hear what's happening right now. Trying to not hear it at all. Trying to, like, in fact, the obsession with the phone and the thoughts and the computer and the career, all of it are methods for ignoring. Like when you're hammering the wood onto the windows in the zombie movie. That's what people are doing all the time with like their phones or their love affairs or their terror or their neurosis or whatever. It's all desperate attempts to just ignore. And what's really fucking sad about it is what they're ignoring is the best thing ever. You know, that's the really, and also the sad thing is it's they're tired. They're so tired. You know, when you stop ignoring, it's really quite wonderful. For example, like my dogs, they crawl on me sometimes. It used to really bother me. And I could tell them to get off the couch or whatever. Another way to put it is I used to really need a lot of space. That was a thing for me. A big important thing, my space. Gotta find my space, just some time alone. That shit, right? And that was like serious. I'd really fucking taught myself that I needed that. I really believed that story. I hadn't even thought about what space was, what it meant to be alone. Can I be alone? When am I not alone, most importantly? And, somewhere within there, suddenly my need for space, when it's gone. I don't fucking care. When there's people in the house, when there's not people in the house, when I'm surrounded by people, I used to get so exhausted. I've got to be alone, man, and recharge. No, I was just ignoring. I wasn't tired because of the people. I was tired because all the effort I was investing and fantasizing about being alone.
Do you feel like just the act of acknowledging it or not suppressing it and looking at it, doing that, as a regular practice creates a gap between those anxieties or fears and they stop coming around a bit? I mean,
it's not a gap. You want the opposite of a gap, you see, because it's like this. Here's the anxiety. Here's your great anxiety, the recurring thing. I had that for most of my life. And it was all numb, man. I was numb as fuck trying to deal with it because I was so freaked out for a lot of different reasons. And so I was ignoring it and I would go numb. And it was the worst. I get depressed. I get so fucking depressed, man, like suicidally depressed. And it was just a real mess. And the whole thing was just based on ignorance in the sense of like, I was exhausted from just ignoring that I was going to die, that my parents were going to die, that, you name it. I was going to get old, that I was sad, that you name it. Anything. And not just that, but then, the way that shit manifests, like if you meet somebody who gets really upset because someone's touching their arm on the airplane, that is a fucking sign, baby. That's a sign because they're not really upset at the person touching them. What they're upset about is that it's connecting and reminding them of their lack of control and the fact that they're sort of ignoring something deeper than that, And so the moment you just stop ignoring or you don't have to even stop, you just practice, even the mild intent, you feel it's really interesting, you don't feel quite as tired as you used to. God, I was fucking tired, man. It's so exhausting, like imagine being a fish and trying to ignore water, like a fish that didn't want to be wet. Boy, you would be in trouble, man. And similarly, I think humans don't want to admit the fact that the tricks they're using to assuage their suffering aren't working. And so once you just admit that, this shit isn't really working. And like I'm always at kind of the same level of misery. I'm always kind of unhappy. I'm always kind of like bummed. I'm always kind of a little tired and anxious and freaked out, Like just acknowledging that. You don't have to come up with a solution, but instead of being like, I'm doing great. I'm living my dreams. I'm running. Or for a lot of people, it's like, I'm going to fucking win, man. I'm up against the world. They're in a boxing match with life. They're going to wake up and they're going to fucking win. Get up and fight, baby. All that shit. It's just tricks to try to create a gap between you and the suffering. So step one would be just acknowledge it, suffering.
Sit with it. Yeah. Right on.
What do you hope people will say at your funeral?
Wow, that's hilarious. Well, I hope they say, holy fucking shit. He resurrected himself. This is amazing. He's Jesus. Hello?
Final answer.
Yeah, that's my final answer.
That was the
Alex.
that was the final question.
Oh,
What,
shit.
yeah. So, what? Was there any questions you would remove or anything you would add if given the chance?
Any questions to your questions?
Yeah, we always like to wrap up with the guests with a little reflection on the questions and which ones work, which ones don't. If they change anything.
Well, I mean, like, man, limit the questions. Come up with 5 questions and then go deep into those questions. Have sub questions and sub questions. Do an interview, It's like, I love doing this shit. It's a joy, but I love talking to you guys. You're fun to talk to, so it's a dialogue with like with my podcast, man, I'll come up with like 3 questions and then it just leads into whatever it leads into. But I understand you're doing a themed podcast. So I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah, totally.
That's the beauty
get
about
it,
America is just going for it.
Yeah.
Just some interactivity in there, man. Like get in the, like these questions are good. Any question's good, but like I don't know.
Well, we
think
interacted more with you than we normally do. That's the interesting thing. I mean,
interact. You guys need to interact. You're the hosts.
Yeah.
People love you. They want to listen to you. They want to hear about you too. You're the thing that's going to be the continuous thread throughout this entire thing, not just people answering your questions. So, having like a dialogue within that is pretty cool. Because, who the fuck knows anyway? Answering questions is hilarious. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. That's just what's spitting out of me at this moment.
Yeah.
But it's fun to like interact with y'all.
Well, what was the process like going through it? Was there any introspection? I mean, you're doing this work all the time on, with yourself anyway, so it's probably nothing out of the ordinary.
Oh, I found it to be very illuminating. I mean, I think in other times of my life, I would have answered these questions differently, or I would have like spent a lot of like time, like, getting lost in them or something like that. But, a lot of people say the answer is in the question, which is pretty weird. But in my case, like for this stuff, it was like, it definitely helped me figure out something, that I've been putting some thought into, which is just this general culture of self-change, self-transformation.
Mm-hmm.
This idea, everyone wants to be different. I mean, there's a lot of money in it, like you sell some system or something like that, which by the way, I don't have anything against like teaching classes or like taking classes. And if you want to learn piano, go to a teacher. But there is a kind of hilarious reality, which is like, sort of embodied in Christianity. And I think it's why Jesus got nailed up, is because he was going around telling people like, you don't really need a priest, a translator. You know what I'm saying? You don't really need that. It's like you're in direct contact with the divine at every moment. And anybody teaching you differently is like, it's probably not true. This whole middleman situation is appearing now in different ways, of course, because not many people are comfortable with the word God or source or whatever. So now God has turned into self-improvement. Yeah. And but it's the same idea. And within it is written this sort of like a something I think that can be a little tricky for people, which is like there's an idea, there's this concept of like passionate intent, like the intensity or passion means you're right, or that so a lot of people get really excited. And that's something you hear a lot these days too. I'm really excited. I'm super excited. That thing, that means these days that's an important quality. It means, oh, great, you're excited. What an empty thing to be excited. Drink a bunch of coffee and get excited. I'm excited. I say it all the time, But go ahead.
I do understand that. It's a very interesting way to look at it. But there's this importance of loving yourself and accepting yourself and compassion. It's probably the most important things. But what about what about acknowledging things that you need to work on? I mean, I think that that's what we're trying to do, and maybe a lot of people aren't at that level of even close to being able to accept or love themselves, you know? So isn't there like an intermediate
Well,
step where they're just like, I don't know.
I think the self-help is really what you start to learn when you start to go down that road. If you do it properly, is really just more like self-learning or self-knowledge.
Well, I think it's a case to case situation. I just know that many people these days are confusing, they think that being aggressive has some benefit
Mhm.
when it really doesn't much. I mean, there are times when you do need aggression, but more often than not, there's really you don't. My experience with most people is that they are not uh, they're not on the wrong path in the sense that like there's something that needs to be changed about them. Their physical appearance or their financial appearance might be something that uh, isn't accepted by the current like zeitgeist or something like that. But usually you run into people, man, they just don't feel very good about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
They feel really like they've done something wrong or something. They feel kind of guilty or something. And they feel confused, but usually they're just really self-deprecating and they're naturally self-deprecating. And then they think there's some kind of like, um, I don't know, valor in that or some humility or something like that. So I more often than not, it's like, it's nice to see inside of people this thing that's in them, in everyone really. And then if you can see it, it's pretty cool. And they can feel that you can see it usually.
Maybe it's the victimhood thing. I mean, even that self-deprecation and being a victim not
Makes
only
it
to
easier
other
to be a
people,
victim.
but yeah, totally. I mean, it seems like that's so much victimhood out there right now.
Yeah, people have been, a lot of people have been victimized. A lot of people have been like brought up in a culture that is just, very confused. Their parents were freaking out, man. There was some form of poverty, not just you could maybe not maybe they had a bunch of money, but their parents didn't that didn't know how to love themselves. They were being distant with them, all this shit like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, most people I run into, they're really strong and they're really, really like most people I run into, man, they would die for someone else like that. They wouldn't even think about it. They would just do it. They would jump into the lake. They would like help. They want to help. They're almost like starving to help, is usually what I encounter. And also the other thing is like, there's a great course in Buddhism you could take from Harvard for free online. And the professor started off the lectures by saying what he loves about Buddhism is it gives him words for things he's already thought. And I like that. That's a pretty good way to describe it. And usually what happens is you run into people and they've got it. They're tuned in. They've got it. They know it. And of course they would know it because it's who they are. And the thing that they know and the who that they are is identical, and that is a fundamental goodness. So you see a flower or a tree or the forest or the grass, and you look at it and you think it's great. And it's great. No one looks at a sunset and it's like, oh, look at that piece of shit. Look at that fucking thing. You see that shitty sunset over there?
Fucking sucks.
Hey, did you go in that forest over there and see those lazy ass trees? They're just standing there.
That crow in the background. What is the significance of
Yeah.
that crow, anyways, or is there any?
Well, I just found out it's a rook. Actually, it's not a crow, unfortunately. And the crows are wonderful, because they're very intelligent, and they some of them use tools, like the
Facial recognition, that kind of stuff.
the crows of New Caledonia, I think, can actually use tools and facial recognition and some kind of tribalism. And they bring you gifts some people get gifts from them. So I think the crow has many different meanings to it for a great many people.
Is it up there for a reason?
The crow?
Yeah.
Well, man, it's like I didn't want to put the waterfall up there because
making Graham
it was
sick.
making you sick. It's making you, there was this, you felt nauseated. I tried to find my video of wasps, but I couldn't.
Oh, that would have really changed the setting. That's too bad.
It does shift, when you're sitting in front of wasps, it does definitely change the feeling
You're
of
always
the
a
room.
little on edge.
Especially giant ones on the screen behind me. Holy shit.
Everybody's got a reaction when the wasps come. I don't care how tough you are.
Oh, I know.
You'll see the moment when they saw the wasps.
Oh yeah, but this video I have, maybe I can find it. It's really cool because like somebody did a nice close-up shot of I think it's called a clave. It's like a wasp nest. I think it's called a clave.
Oh, I think I saw that rotating around like the birds do in the air, kind of.
Let me see if it's just wasps kind of hanging out and doing whatever the fuck it is they're doing. And like you realize, like, I think the kind of unnerving thing about the video, if I can find it, is that these wasps, there's more going on there.
Yeah.
You don't want there to be the level of like organization that's happening in these fucking, And then you look and you realize like, what the fuck? They're like, they're one thing, they're a super organism, they're moving together, but they're also individuals. You know what I mean? There's like so much going on. It's just like right there in front of you all the time, man. Wasps. And then if the wasps have their own little society going on that's intense like that, what else am I not seeing?
Yeah.
What else am I surrounded by? I just interviewed this woman, Dr. Kaylee Swift. She's a corvid expert. And it was a really exciting interview because it was very illuminating in the sense that there's so much we don't know about the world. And there's so much going on around us at all times. But it dawned on me that humans are very eager to communicate with aliens.
Yeah.
But they don't give a fuck about what the crows are saying. You know what I mean? We are spending so much of the they want to go. They're like, fuck it. We can't understand what the dolphins are saying. We have no idea what the crows are saying. But let's fucking find an alien so we can't understand what the fuck that thing's saying. Like you can't understand what a thing is saying on the same planet as you. And you expect to be able to get some transmission from a gaseous cloud of fucking ionic sentience.
Oh yeah,
using
there's way more chance it's gonna have some technological breakthrough to fucking or read your mind. I mean, that's gonna happen.
Graham's an alien guy.
I'm looking for aliens all the time.
Yeah, but that's what's so funny is that quest for the alien is really funny.
Yeah, it is.
Because the quest for the alien usually involves looking up or into some kind of inscription.
Yeah.
It's just the assumptions are so, we have so many assumptions.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there are claves of fucking wasps organized.
Did you find that video? Vibrating. Are you looking for it?
Oh, yeah, let me see. Hang on a second here. Let's see if I can find it. I probably won't be able to.
Yeah, I don't
Let's see here. What happened to my wasps? Is it this?
Hopefully you don't pick the wrong video.
I don't have any fucking porn. I don't know what kind of creep keeps porn like porn downloaded. That's old school, man. That's some shit from
porn
the 90s.
Stays on the cloud.
Yeah, that's some crazy ass shit. When I was a kid, I went to this fucking like weirdo friend of mine invited me to his house, and he had gigabytes of porn on his computer, and he's showing it to me, and it's like, dude, I don't want to see your. No offense, man, but like this is not something you want to show off. Let me see. Not that porn's bad, but it's like, what about your other pictures? We love to watch our members of our species fuck. Let's see.
The thing that keeps coming up for me is Marvel and superhero stuff like Wasp. I can't find that one. I think I know which one you're talking about.
No, this is from this great website I found called Prexels, and it's got all this like really high quality public domain footage that you could just use for free, and it's awesome because it's like a lot of it's like really good quality. I'm not sponsored by them, P.S., but I have been using their stuff. because it looks really good. And there's so much of that out there right now, which is so badass. If you want to just make random shit, you can grab videos and just put anything to it. Yeah, I
B-roll,
can't find
baby.
it.
Yeah, either can I.
Unlimited B-roll.
Do you still get into the virtual reality stuff as well? Are you still following that whole thing?
No,
or-
but I'm getting there. That's now that I've got 2 green screens. I want to see if I could like stream from inside the VR so that it's projected like I'm in there. I've seen some people do that, and it's pretty fucking cool. The problem is you have that goddamn clunky ass headset on your face, so your whole face gets covered up. But
yeah.
just for fun, it might be an interesting experiment. I just haven't like gotten into that yet. But I still have my HTC Vive.
Yeah.
I'm more excited right now about this technology because it's like it still has within it the something that was really excited that I am very excited about when it comes to technology, which is collaboration. You know, you can like stream many different people into a Wirecast at once. And I've just been doing random interviews with people, and like I'm hoping to figure out a way to expand on that with music and some other stuff to like sort of get into collaboration with people, which I think is the whole point of technology, is to figure out ways to group with people and form your own wasp clave, so to speak, and then create stuff in the moment, trusting the communal mind and not trying to control it too much to see what it emerges.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
So, and that's your podcast is still going strong, the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, right? If people want to check that out.
Still doing it. Still doing the podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I heard a really
One of
good.
the better podcasts out there. Definitely worth checking out.
Thank you. How very kind of you to say.
Yeah.
Right on, Duncan. Well, we're up against it. We should let you go.
Well,
Big
thank
thanks
you
for
so
coming on the
much for my pleasure. Big thanks to you for being on your prestigious show. I wish you the best of luck with your questions.
Absolutely.
You know, 13 is intense. That's a really intense number.
We'll do another Grimerica here down the road too, so we can just do another fucking gong show. Those are always fun too.
I would love to. Y'all let me know, man. I'm at your wish is my command.
All right, buddy.
Right on, Duncan. Well, enjoy the
See ya.
rest of your night.
Thank you, my friends. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.
That was a chat with Duncan Trussell. Clear. Well, we got some comments in the chat. Duncan is a great inspiration.
Yeah, very inspiring. Yeah, that was awesome.
For someone who can't create inspiration, he created some.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
That's a good point. No, he meant within yourself.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So he
I
created
get
it
it.
outwards.
It was
That's
a
good.
joke.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks.
No,
bud.
that was great. No, he's
Anyway.
very wise.
Oh, he's wise beyond his years for sure. He's young.
And funny too.
Yeah. So what are we gonna do? You ready to do the
Man,
intro?
there was a question at the end I had, and I totally fucking lost the key there. It was after the VR and all that, and I wanted to get into something else quickly before, but we're out of time. So
We're out of time.
yeah, he already went over, so it was nice of him to just stick with us.
Yeah, he gave us a lot, and took us an extra half hour to get started and all that fucking
Another
shit.
crash computer today, and
We found the middle of the table though, so yes,
Yeah.
win. I have to pee. We're gonna do an intro. How long you need for the intro?
20 minutes, maybe 25
Okay,
minutes. We should just
motherfuckers.
say a half hour, probably.
Okay, motherfuckers, go get something to eat. Hit the super chat if you like the show. Hit the super chat. That's how we get paid on the live stream. We'll be back in a half an hour. We'll send out the alert. There's a Franklin Grimes in the chat, which is a little spooky. You know, Darren Grimes started following me on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
He seems to be a UK Brexiter.
Oh, cool. No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Super right wing. Anyway. Or it's
You don't have to be right wing to be a Brexiter, just so you know.
It says alt-right, Graham. Oh, I said I wasn't going to say that anymore. I'm sorry. Superman? Who said Superman? Did you say Superman?
Nope.
Oh. Superman. Superman came on 13 Questions too. Yeah, actually, I think I'm in discussions with Superman right now about using his music as all the outro music. A couple of his songs. Anyway, super chat. What's the super chat? He Larvey Coswald There's a little money sign under the chat. You hit that and you send cash to the Grimerica Show. Google takes most of it. Anyway.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask him. It was about the independent media and the censorship and all, because he was just talking about collaborating with everybody, and then I just gapped out.
Way to go. Well, we're going to do a Grimerica Show soon.
Okay.
He likes those more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway. I know Frank Grimes was a single episode Simpsons character.
It's been in like 3 episodes.
He was actually, I think Frank Grimes' kid came back to avenge his death at some point. Trust me, my last name is Grimes. I've heard every fucking Frank Grimes reference that is in existence.
I don't even know about this Frank Grimes Simpson dude.
This is like me with your 80s music.
Yeah.
I'll explain it to you after.
Okay.
Anyway, guys, we'll be back in half an hour with an intro. We found the middle of the table. So we're going to put that in too. See you in a half hour. Kill it, Brody.